Guys, I don't know when you'll get to watch this, but I am reading it to you on the last day of school, the last day of your third grade year. I hope you'll get a chance to watch all the rest of these videos this summer. I just absolutely could not leave this book unfinished. I'm glad that I have a way to put it out there for you to watch and listen to, and hopefully you get them all finished. So here we go with chapter 19. "Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it," said the woman as she stepped aboard the stagecoach. "You're welcome, Kate, any time," replied the man who helped her board. He tipped his hat and walked away. Jenny stood in stunned disbelief. "Was that big-nosed Kate who just got on that stagecoach?" she asked as the stagecoach pulled away. "Yep," said the swamper. "But the hearing isn't over yet. Her boyfriend's still in trouble, and she's leaving town?" asked Jenny. "Yep. Rather odd, isn't it?" said the swamper. "And what's even funnier is that the man who helped her is Johnny Ringo. He loaned her the money for the fare, and Ringo and Doc hate each other with a passion that I've never seen before." "Kate's friends with her boyfriend's worst enemy?" asked Jenny. "That's right," replied the swamper. "That's bizarre," said Jenny. "If it was my boyfriend, I wouldn't leave. Wonder if Kate's hiding something." "Maybe it's one of those on-again, off-again relationships that people in your time seem to have," suggested the swamper. "Or maybe it's because she saw that Doc and Morgan really did shoot first and she doesn't want to have to testify against him," said Jenny. "He's probably still upset with her for talking to Johnny Behan." "That could be, I suppose," said the swamper, "and if that is the case, then maybe she's wise to leave." He paused for a moment. "But we'll have to let Doc and Kate worry about it. We have to get back to the courtroom. The verdict is about to be read." Judge Wells Spicer looked tired when he entered his courtroom on the afternoon of November 30th, 1881. He began by telling the court that he would be reading a statement and that his decision would come after the statement was read. It was a very long statement. He explained that he only considered the facts that were agreed on by both sides or were established by consistent testimony by the witnesses. He was not going to consider anything that had been disputed, such as whether or not Doc Holliday or the Earps had been involved in the stagecoach robbery. He explained that he believed that Ike Clanton had been making threats against the Earps on the day of the gunfight, and that Virgil Earp was performing his duty by arresting him for violating the city ordinance against carrying firearms. The judge read on, rehashing the events of that fateful day and the testimony of some of the witnesses. He stated that the Earps were officers of the law who were charged with disarming known criminals who had refused to be disarmed, and that he believed the Earps had acted in self-defense. He ended by saying that in view of the facts and circumstances of the case, the character of the parties, the results of his decision were, "I cannot resist the conclusion that the defendants were fully justified in committing these homicides, that it was a necessary act done in the discharge of an official duty." Then he read the verdict. "The evidence taken before me in this case would not, in my judgment, warrant a conviction of the defendants by a trial jury of any offense whatsoever." "In other words," said the swamper, "the Earps and Doc Holliday are free to go. They won't be held for trial." "And while the Earps won their case, they lost in the court of public opinion," said the swamper. "What does that mean?" asked Luke. "It means that too many people have been left with too many doubts. You know, Luke, even in your time, some people still believe that the Earps were secretly involved with the stagecoach robbery." As the people filed out of the courtroom, the swamper asked Luke and Jenny, "So what do you two think?" "I'm not sure," said Jenny. "At first I sided with the Earps, but now, after hearing other witnesses and thinking about what I saw, I'm not sure. Maybe they could have handled it differently." "I think everyone's to blame," said Luke. "Too many things went wrong that day for it to be one person's fault." A voice behind them said, "You're right, Luke. There's enough blame to go around for everyone, and all of us who were here that day bear some responsibility for what happened. Johnny Behan and I probably bear most of the responsibility because we were the lawmen in charge." Luke and Jenny turned around to see Virgil Earp, but this time he had the same white glow about him as the swamper. They knew that Virgil was addressing them as a spirit person. Virgil continued, "You know, people in your time like to say that hindsight is 20/20. I've thought a lot about what I could have done differently that day. What if I had stuck to my decision not to go over to the OK Corral? What if the Cowboys had left town sooner? What if the judge had put Ike in jail that day? What if the Cowboys had not gone to Spangenberg's gun shop and stocked up on ammunition? But you know what? We could have done everything differently, and we still might have had a similar outcome on a different day. What happened, happened, and as much as all of us would like to, we can't go back and change the past. We have to learn to live with the consequences of our actions and move on with our lives. Virgil looked over at the Swamper. Good seeing you again. You too, replied the Swamper. Virgil tipped his hat as he slowly faded away. Is there more? Asked Luke. I figured that since the court case is over, we'd reached the end of the story. A few more stories remain, said the Swamper. You may have thought that the Earp's troubles were over, but that's not the case at all. In fact, the real trouble for Wyatt and his brothers has hardly begun.